Good afternoon, dear students. So today we are going to talk about classroom management. That's the topic of this masterclass. Before we start, it's important to know the definition of classroom management. So classroom management refers to the wide variety of skills and techniques that teachers use to keep students organized, orderly, focused, attentive on task, and academically productive during a class. So as a teacher, you need to juggle an awful lot day to day in order to effectively fulfill your duties in a confident and assuring manner. Being able to manage your classroom is essential. Classroom management is a critical skill, and knowing exactly how it works can help to ensure success. So when classroom management strategies are executed effectively, teachers minimize the behaviors that impede learning for both individual students and group of students, while maximizing the behaviors that facilitate or enhance learning. So generally speaking, effective teachers tend to display strong classroom management skills, while the hallmark of the inexperienced or less effective teacher is a disorderly classroom filled with students who are not working or paying attention or being participative enough. So research not only supports the importance of classroom management, but also sheds light on the dynamics of classroom management. In this case, according to Kuros 1997, he shows the importance of there being a balance between teacher actions that provide clear consequences for unacceptable behavior and teacher actions that recognize and reward acceptable behavior. So why do you need effective classroom management? Effective classroom management is incredibly important because without it, you will not be able to create a learning environment that has a positive classroom culture. So what are the challenges of classroom management? Among the challenges of classroom management, we have students might find it difficult to participate because they don't want to make mistakes, or they might feel, in this case, judged by their peers or their classmates or even by the teacher. So in this case, they are afraid to participate. Another one can be that students insist on translating every word, which is a very common mistake amongst learners, because they think that learning a second language involves translating everything from their mother tongue to the L2. Students speaking their own language, which in this case is, it depends on the situation, like we as teachers can let our students use their mother tongue to communicate. But at the same time, as a teacher, you need to let them know that if they make an effort and they start using the L2 as much as they can, they are going to, of course, learn more, and also they are going to be able to communicate and to develop the four skills. So students have varying levels of commitment. So it's important to get to know the group of people that you're working with and what are their goals. And in this case, let them know how important it is for them to learn a second language and how committed they are to do it. So what are the things that they are going to do, or how are they going to work in order to, in this case, achieve those goals that they have set at the beginning of the lesson or the school year. So students insist on translating every phrase into their own language. So as we were saying before, so most of students think that learning a second language or another language involves translating everything, which instead of helping them can hinder their learning process. So that's why the teacher should be the guide that provides examples according to their age, context, their level, and let the students know that there are different ways and techniques and methodologies that are, in this case, that are working better than using the traditional one that is translating everything. So now let's talk a little bit about tips for successful classroom management. But before, it's important to know that classroom management strategies can look very different depending on several factors such as course subject, age of students, size of the classroom, you personally as a teacher, the behavior of your students. So here we have some techniques or tips that you can use that will apply in pretty much all cases. So for example, we have plan for your lessons. So create a solid lesson plan. A solid lesson plan forms the foundation of effective classroom management. Making sure expectations are clear will help to create a safe and productive learning environment for students. Teach and practice self-regulation techniques. So in this case, self-regulation is a skill that allows people to manage their emotions, behavior, and body movement when faced with a challenging situation. The ability to self-regulate enables a person to keep their negative emotions and urges in check and think before reacting. So self-regulation practices are a tool that can help teachers fight against high levels of stress, exclusionary discipline, and implicit bias. These practices won't eradicate the problems. There is plenty of work that leaders, or in this case the teachers, must do at the system level. However, self-regulation practices can support teachers in developing behaviors and ways of being with the students that are supportive and conducive to learning and their overall social and emotional development. So also, don't use a clip chart. So in order to talk about this and why we shouldn't use clip charts, it's because for students who rise to the top of the chart, there is nowhere to go but to the bottom or down. So students who struggle with self-regulation might find themselves frequently clipped down, knowing that everyone knows they are not meeting teachers' expectations. So it's not useful to use this type of resources. In this case, we also have communicate with non-verbal cues. Non-verbal cues involve the process of sending information without relying on spoken words. Non-verbal cues are useful for many things, including clarifying messages, communicating mood and attitude, and mixed signals. Examples of non-verbal cues can be include eye contact, hand gestures, and facial expressions. Another ones that you can consider, another tips that you can consider for successful classroom management is to assign to students different jobs, integrate a lot of movement and fun, be flexible with your classes. When we say that you need to be flexible as a teacher with your classes, that means that you can, in this case, of course, you are doing or you're preparing the lesson in advance. But if something comes up in the class, you can change a couple of things. So a couple of things can be changed according to the needs of your students or the group of students. It's also a good idea to incorporate interactive activities and to be consistent in the procedures and routines that you are using in the class. Also use visual cues. Remember that this is very useful since it's proven that visuals are a great resource to learning to the learning process. Invite the students to claim ownership over the rules. Now, let's talk a little bit about this part over here. So expectations, rules, and routines pave the way for successful instruction and successful students. So as we have in this chart over here, so we have expectations, rules, and routines. Here are a couple of examples. So you, as the teacher, need to set high expectations for your students. Or you're going to let them know what are the expectations that you have for them. So in this case, for example, what you expect from your learners is to be respectful. And according to these, you can develop the rules, such as, for example, okay, in order to be respectful, you're going to raise your hand. And this is going to become a routine. For example, think of an on-task topic or question, or quietly raise hand to share, or wait to be called upon before speaking. So they are going to rationalize why they are doing this, and they are going to find that expectations, rules, and routines are the key to being successful. Let's talk a little bit about planning your lessons. So in order to do so, it's important to answer these questions that you have over here. First, you should ask yourself as a teacher, what am I teaching? How will I teach it? Who am I teaching? And do my students understand? So these couple of questions are going to help you to have a clear idea about how you're going to develop your class, or what are the activities, the methodology, the resources that you're going to do in advance, or you're going to have in advance, so you can plan your lesson. So a well-planned lesson is an absolute game changer. It's like your secret weapon. If you take the time to plan ahead, you'll save yourself a ton of time and stress during the actual lesson. So make sure your lesson is developmentally appropriate and engaging. You can include a fun icebreaker and attention grabbers as part of your lesson. So in this link over here, you have a couple of examples of icebreakers and attention grabbers that you can use among your students according to their age. In this case, for example, adolescents or teens, and what are the icebreakers that you can use with them. So this will help teens overcome social awkwardness and nervousness. Be clear about the main ideas you like your students to take away and how you're delivering that information. Use hands-on activities for students to build the target skills and wrap up that will help students reflect on what they've learned. So hands-on activities is an instructional technique that allows participants to learn by doing. During a hands-on activity, participants, or in this case, learners, are directly involved in their learning process. Participants get direct practical experience as they apply their learning and learn from their failures. So, among other things that you can do is to consider the material you're using in advance. Check the class distribution. If you're planning to use any technology in the classroom, make sure you're familiar with it. So let's talk a little bit about the first one. Consider the material you're using in advance. So if you're using worksheets, make sure that everything is printed. That you have, I don't know if you're going to use art supplies, or what are the resources that you're going to use, books, game material. So everything should be ready before you're actually giving the class. Check the class distribution. So if you're breaking up students into small groups or partners, you should ask what format will you use? Do you want groups to be based on where they are already sitting? Or will you, in this case, or will it work better to group students randomly? Will you let your students choose their partners, or is that something better for you to be in charge of? So you should ask yourself all those questions before, in this case, doing the class distribution, or in this case, preparing your lesson plan as well. Okay. Now, this one, be flexible with your lesson plan. So as the picture that we have over here says, if you have to be flexible and go with the flow. So in some cases, in most cases, especially according to the age, context, level, and the group of people that you're working with, you need to be flexible. Although you have objectives that are valuable to cover and you're keeping formative or informal data, students are not tested. So this allows you to be more flexible. So you may have review and prepare a lesson and think students are going to nail it. But when you walk in, the students have just come in from recess and are sweating and arguing about who won the soccer game. You instantly decide to pivot your lesson and instead teach about being a good teammate, losing with pride, and not boasting when you are the winner. So thinking on your feet and supporting the needs of the classroom in that moment is just as much as a superpower classroom management skill. So all that problem solving and solution finding is what the school counselors are trained to do. So use your skill, set to pause, recess your lesson objective, and provide what will help your students have successful interactions in the future. So that's what it means going with the flow. Maybe you're going to change a couple of things according to your students' needs and reality at that moment. And that's being flexible. And also that's a good way in which students are going to feel that they matter, that the things that they are doing at that moment matters to the teacher. So that's a great way for them to learn also, by, in this case, putting language in context. Invite students to claim ownership over the rules. So this is especially helpful since you're visiting different classrooms, each with their own guidelines and expectations. So by actively involving all your students in this process, what you can do is you can foster a sense of responsibility and accountability among them. And also, it is a great way to reinforce those expectations and ensure that everyone is on the same page. So you're considering everyone. So you're inviting your students to claim ownership over those rules. Have consistent procedures and routines for counseling lessons. So having clear procedures, routines, and expectations in place creates a structured environment where students know what to expect. This predictability helps minimize confusion and reduces disruptive behaviors. So for example, starting each counseling lesson with a consistent opening routine, such as a brief check-in circle, for example, which is going to set a positive tone and signals to students that it's time to transition into the lesson. So when students understand what is expected of them during counseling lessons, it helps minimize confusion and potential conflicts. So clear expectations provide a framework for appropriate behavior and empower students to make positive choices. Okay, incorporate interactive activities. So by incorporating interactive activities, what you're going to get from your students is for them to be engaged through hands-on activities, group discussions, and interactive games, which are going to keep them actively involved. So build a sense of community in the classroom. What I mean with this, in order to establish a connection among them, you are going to let them to feel a sense of acceptance, belonging, trust, and membership. While they are learning, they are going to feel that their needs are satisfied. They are going to feel support. They are going to feel that they have common goals so they can work on them. And knowledge is going to be actively created. So in order to finish with this app, I have a couple of tips over here that you should consider to manage your class. So build healthy relationships. As I was saying before, it's important for you to get to know your students, to get, in this case, or to have a clear idea about their context, their interests, their level, their reality, so you can establish a relationship with them. Develop respect, not authority. Of course, it's important for you to establish and to let them know what are the things that they are allowed and not allowed to do, and what are the consequences of not following the rules and not being respectful. But at the same time, you need to be flexible, as we were talking before, and let your students to feel confident enough, or for you as the teacher to make sure that you're letting your students to feel free to communicate and to establish that relationship with you. Appreciate the achievers. So it's important to let students know when they are doing things in the right way, and to, in this case, point out positive behaviors and reinforce them. Also make students feel involved. Encourage group projects where they are going to work as a part of a group, as a team. So they are going to they will have to establish relationships, and they of course are going to have common goals. So let the students contribute in building guidelines. So it's important to get students' opinions and to make feel them that their opinion matters, and that they that we as the teachers are considering what they are saying as part of what we are going to teach them. So document rules and have a warning system in place, which is also very important. So what are good classroom management, or in this case, what a good classroom management should aim to? So a good classroom management should aim to create an organized and functional environment for the teacher and the students. Establish opportunities for academic learning and personal growth. Reduce bad classroom behavior and other disruptions. So by doing or by using the tips that we already discussed in the previous slides, so it's a way that you can work, or that you can use to reduce bad classroom behavior. So it's important for you as the teacher to consider those ones and avoid disruptions. Be time efficient and ensure learning time is always prioritized. Make sure students are focused, motivated, and productive. And sometimes this might be the hardest part. That's why we need to get to know the group of people that we're working with, the age and everything, right? Before or in advance. So we can do our lesson plan. We can plan the activities. We can choose the materials and the resources, the methodologies that are going to work better with those group of people and according to their age and level. So make sure students are focused, motivated, and productive. Promote an inclusive environment that caters to all ability levels. So it's important for them to feel confident, motivated, but also to feel that they are part of the group, that they are going to have that sense of belonging. So that's the end of this masterclass. But before we finish with this up, or we wrap this up, it's important that you check the EVEA platform and do the activity that is required after you're done watching this masterclass. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the checklist that is on the EVEA platform. And based on it, what you're going to do is you're going to create an essay about classroom management where you cover all the points. All the instructions are already posted on the EVEA platform, so you can change. There is the extension, the number of pages, and what you should consider at the moment of writing your essay. Some of them are here as well, so you can check those ones in this presentation as well. So you're going to have this video, which is going to be available for you, and you can use this masterclass in order to do the activity. Thank you very much for your attention, and don't forget, I'm here for you if you need anything. Thank you.